coordinator on behalf of CARDI for this EU finance coconut phase 2 project. The International Trade Center and CARDI are co-implementing this project across 12 CARIFORM countries. And we've been in the vanguard since 2014 to present in impacting upon the livelihoods and the sustainability of the industry amongst the various stakeholders. Now, the focus of today's webinar is that of coconut waste. A misnomer, but by no means less important, in that we're looking at value-added products that could be derived from coconut waste. So byproducts from the coconut industry. Now, in that regard, we have a distinguished guest of panelists that will be with us throughout the day. But for this, the opening ceremony, allow me just to highlight the persons who are with us. Allow me to highlight first Mr. Ansari Hosein, who is the Manager of Science, Technology and Innovation at CARDI. Allow me also to highlight Mr. William Rodriguez Castro, who is the Project Coordinator on behalf of the International Trade Center. Allow me also to highlight Mr. Hayden Romano, who is the Managing Director of the Environmental Management Authority here in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me recognize Mr. Kevin Thompson, General Manager of SwimCall, and Mr. Runako Osborne from the Green Fund, Ministry of Planning and Development. And last but by no means least, allow me to highlight Mr. Juan Luis Molenuevo, Program Manager from the Delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago. It's our distinct pleasure to have you all here present with us for this, the opening ceremony. Now, allow me to introduce the chair of today's, at least this opening ceremony proceedings, Mr. Philippe Agostini. He is the current chairman of the Coconut Growers Association, and he's also the chair of what is called the National Stakeholder Platform under this Coconut Phase 2 project. He has also served as past president of the Cocoa Research Advisory Committee, as president of the Agricultural Society, as well as president of the Caribbean Agribusiness Association. He has also been president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cattle and Water Buffalo Producers Association. So he has quite a range of experience within the agricultural sector, and with specifically a focus on coconuts. He has a thriving business of his own, and of course, the industry is one that is personal to him and of great interest. And there's no one better place to lead us through this opening ceremony in this regard. As I hand over to Mr. Agostini, once again, let me highlight the support received from the European Union in terms of financing this 11th EDF-funded Coconut Phase 2 project. Allow me also to highlight the CARIFORM Secretariat, through whom this support would have been received. And also let me highlight our Alliances for Action partners in terms of the International Trade Center, the African, Caribbean, Pacific Group of States, the Coconut Industry Board based in Jamaica, and there's a whole range of other stakeholders who we collaborate with across the region. So with that, I hope that you have a good and productive day, that the technical sessions will be of interest to you, and that there will be robust discussions. We expect that the proceedings will be interactive and that they would yield the type of information that you're looking for here today. So with that, let me hand over to Mr. Agostini and bid you a good day.
A good day. Thank you, Tristan. This indeed is a timely seminar, because I mean, for many reasons that I could think of right now, be it from the in terms of waste management, in terms of the utility of processing this waste to be used in further industries. So it's all very timely from what I could see. And indeed, I've seen in the press here, for example, the development of a few companies, which I think will be in the program later, as to the actual processing, bagging, sale of coconut fiber. I don't like to use the word waste. To replace, like in this case, imported media for the vegetable industry, for example, and indeed home gardening and whatever. It always annoys me when I see imported matter that can be produced here, and we seem to be moving in the right direction. Obviously, there are many other usages. I see, for example, carbon, activated carbon, which I know can be done because I've done it myself. It's quite easy to do. Well, to fabricate, to sell is another issue. And biochar, which is very much in the news. I'm just picking out a few things. Pardon? Yes, and so this is all very timely and very useful for, and also we have put together a host of presenters which more or less cover the whole range of usages for this coconut waste. So without ado, I'd like to pass on to introduce Mr. Ansari Hosein, who is the Manager, Science, Technology and Innovation of CARDI. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Philippe Agostini, Chairman, Coconut Growers Association, and Chairman, Coconut National Stakeholders Platform. Mr. Juan Luis Malinuevo, Program Manager representing the delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. William Castro Rodriguez, Project Coordinator at the International Trade Center. Mr. Hayden Romano, Managing Director of the Environmental Management Authority. Mr. Kevin Thompson, General Manager, Solid Waste Management Company Limited. And Mr. Runako Osborne, Community Liaison Officer, Green Fund, Ministry of Planning and Development. Presenters, facilitators, colleagues, members of the media if present, staff, and friends of CARDI, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today, we are here to discuss and ventilate on a very important topic. That is the one of commercializing value-added opportunities from coconut waste in Trinidad and Tobago. This event is being held as part of activities marking CARDI's 47th anniversary. And therefore, in this regard, I am sure that you will understand if I dedicate a little of my time to reflect on CARDI as an institution since it was established 47 years ago on this past Sunday, 5th of December. On that day, government representatives signed the agreement establishing CARDI, making it today the oldest and only regional CARICOM body responsible for agricultural research and development, with a physical presence today in 14 member states. This institution, it belongs to all of us as people of CARICOM. And incidentally, this is one of CARDI's strongest features. With this presence, with this setup, we are able to immediately reach farmers in all these 14 countries, transferring technologies and training and helping farmers. I dare say there is no other institution which has this capability. And that's why our institution is so important to the regional agricultural landscape. Some highlights of our impact over the years includes being there for Barbados during the time of the sugarcane borer and the yam internal brown spot disease, working in Trinidad and Tobago to develop tomato varieties that can withstand warm nights, for the OECS developing interventions so that farmers can earn a living on steep slopes, for Jamaica by developing very effective feeds and feeding systems for the small ruminant industry and dealing with the coffee berry borer, and for the entire region during the trying times of the pink mealybug. In recent times, we have been working on developing IPM strategies for a number of pests and diseases in coconuts in various countries, among many other activities that obviously I don't have time to go into right now. I use those as examples, recognizing that technologies and systems developed by CARDI in any member state can be easily transferred to any one of our other member states with the necessary tweaking as appropriate. Work done in Trinidad and Tobago on mulatto, for example, was easily transferred to St. Kitts and Barbados to benefit farmers across there. And this is where, again, the regional network of CARDI is advantageous, and we are able to move successes in one country throughout the region to other countries. A lot has happened over the last 47 years, and CARDI as an institution has gone through many changes as we are undergoing right now. And we must do so in order to stay relevant. Our owners are going through challenging social and economic times, particularly among this COVID-19 pandemic, and consequently, so are we. And when this happens, we must work even harder and smarter to remain relevant and, frankly, to really continue to exist. We are ever conscious of what is happening in our environment and nimble enough to adjust. And this brings me to the focus of the session today: coconuts, and more particularly, the utilization of its waste products. Data suggests that the coconut water industry is worth more than 9 to 10 billion US dollars. Other data suggests that there are over 70 billion coconuts harvested every year, at least 10 billion for coconut water alone. And still, that is not enough to meet the global demand. This we saw as a golden opportunity for Caribbean peoples. One of the first images which come to the mind when we speak Caribbean is the coconut palm, the coconut itself, coconut water, and so on. This led to the development of phase 1 of the coconut industry development for the Caribbean project. And then upon the successful completion of phase 1, then we had the beginning of phase 2. The coconut phase 2 project is funded by the European Union under the Caribbean Regional Indicative Program with support from the CARICOM Secretariat. It is being implemented in 12 countries during the period August 2019, and it ends July 2023. The project is being co-implemented by CARDI and the ITC, working together with the Ministry of Agriculture along with other key stakeholders in the respective countries. The overall development objective of this project is to enhance competitiveness of family farms in coconut value chains through better local, regional, and global market integration and production. And therefore, if we are to increase production and productivity, what is going to happen? There will also be an increase in the amount of what we call coconut waste being generated. And as Mr. Chairman mentioned, I too don't like to call it coconut waste, but that's what we call it for now. And when we speak about coconut waste, we are not only speaking about the shells and the husks and so on, but we also speak about the inflorescence, the leaves, the old trees, and so on. A lot of this waste sometimes ends up in rivers and gullies and in back roads, which of course leads to environmental issues and health issues. You have rats and mosquito breeding and all that. And therefore, under this project, there's a deliberate effort to sensitize stakeholders and create awareness as to the opportunities which exist from transformation of this coconut waste into useful products, not only to increase the incomes and profitability, but this is also in line with the promotion of a circular economy and closing that waste cycle. This includes information on the actual processes involved in making of these products, examples of commercial successes, while highlighting work in a few countries, example, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica, and Guyana. Some of this we're going to hear about today. We hope that by doing this, we stimulate new investments leading to additional agripreneurs and new businesses, which brings economic benefits and job creation. We also expect by the end of today to get additional feedback from you, the audience, on areas in which you need additional support, whether that be in the form of making geotextiles or improving the quality of cocoa peat, and whatever it is that you need, and what is required to push this section of the industry forward, possibly establishing a working group which can come together, supported by CARDI, the ITC, the EU, and the National Stakeholder Platform. In closing, I am very pleased to see so many institutions and organizations on the program today. And those who are going to deliver presentations and make inputs into today's discussions. As CARDI has long held the view that no single organization or institution or country for that matter can do all that is needed on its own. Today, we have the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Planning and Development, the University of the West Indies, the National Stakeholder Platform, the Swim Call, the EMA, the EU, the ITC, the private sector persons in Ms. Kamisha Dominique and Mr. Robert Thompson, and also a presentation all the way from India. We all need to work together to get things done. Everyone has a role to play, and all are important to move this industry forward. I thank you for your time and look forward to this action and momentum continuing long after today ends. We really cannot drop the ball in this one. I thank you. Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hosein. You said already a lot of points I was going to mention, so thank you for that. I would now like to introduce Mr. William Castro Rodriguez, the project coordinator of the ITC. William?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, and good morning and good afternoon for the ones connecting from other parts of the world. For us, it's a great pleasure to be here as ITC. So I would like to welcome all of our participants and send my special remarks to the speakers and the organizers, and then of course all protocols observed. So first, let me begin to extend the congratulations of ITC to CARDI on the occasion of the 47th anniversary. ITC pledges the support for CARDI and to continue working alliances for improved productivity of the coconut sector and associated crops, and to continue forming partnerships with important institutions in the region to really achieve sustainable support in our interventions. And again, of course, thanks to the European Union, the CARI Forum Directorate, and the OACPS for pledging their support and continue supporting our interventions in the Caribbean. I'll try to be short in my opening remarks, just to allow for the real interesting discussions to take place, and then of course to get the feedback from the participants. Again, we really think this event is very important for Trinidad and Tobago, and then also to be replicated in other countries in the region. As both my colleagues have indicated, the project is being implemented in 12 Caribbean countries. So definitely one of our objectives is to replicate these activities and then also find ways to share the knowledge between the region. CARDI, ITC, and together with other partners like the CIB in Jamaica, the International Coconut Community, we have organized several trainings. Of course, due to the COVID situation, it has been virtually most of them, but we have also gone to organize local activities, taking care of all the protocols. But we have organized several technical sessions, webinars, to try and to spread knowledge. And then one of them is here also specifically on the coconut husk. We have already agreed to scratch the word waste in the title, but we really want to strengthen the fact that coconut is a zero waste product. We have really seen that every part of the tree, it can be used, and it can be an opportunity for growth, and especially for green growth for our small and micro entrepreneurs in the region. We have the case of, for example, Barbados, where we're now partnering with the University of the West Indies and the National Conservation Commission, where we are now going to begin work to use the coconut husk to produce energy. We're gonna hear more from it later, but by using this technology, we can we can really find another source of energy for our entrepreneurs, and really to reduce the waste that is now being caused, and it's really a problem for the communities. But we are now taking the opportunity to use that and really to provide a source of income for both our farmers and our processors. I'm gonna put in the chat for all of our participants the link where you can actually see the recording of some of the webinars that we have been, let's say, hosting for our region, where we actually spread the knowledge of different coconut value-added products that we can produce in the region. And then, of course, there was one particular session on the coconut husk with other uses that we can take advantage of it. So, for example, it shows how we can use the husk to moisture the plant, to use in the gardening, to reduce the fungal growth of the plant, to use it as I discussed, as a biofuel and also a source of charcoal. And there are many varieties in terms of house appliances, decoration, etc., that we can really take use of the husk and really make it a business opportunity in the region. So we will be putting in the chat the link where you can see those recordings and those presentations. We really look forward to your feedback in terms of what other areas we can really do with the project to showcase and to demonstrate the commercial value of using the coconut waste, and really take advantage of the whole nut and have some integrated and sustainable approaches for the coconut production in the region. So I will leave it at that. So with that, I thank you again, all the participants that are here today for this important session, and we really look forward to this very productive day for you. So thank you, and back to you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Castro Rodriguez. We will now have some remarks from Mr. Hayden Romano, who's the Managing Director of the EMA, which is the Environmental Management Authority in Trinidad. As we know, well, in Trinidad, and I'm sure other countries, coconut countries around the world, the pollution, let's call it, from discarded coconut shell, as we call it, coconut waste, mostly from the coconut water industry, which in Trinidad is dumped all over the place, therefore causing problems like mosquito breeding, etc. I think one of the main objectives of this seminar in Trinidad is to show, to develop the concept of using this product, this particular coconut waste, instead of dumping it, because as we will see in further presentations, it does have immense value. And I will just touch on one thing which I'll talk about again. For me, one of the best uses of all this coconut waste is actually to go back on the farm to be integrated in the actual soil, which has enormous benefits. I mean, instead of just throwing it away. So without ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Romano, Hayden Romano, the Managing Director of the EMA. Hayden?
Good morning. Philippe Agostini, Chairman, Ansari, Hosein, and other staff of CARDI, Juan Luis Molinuevo of the delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago, other eminent presenters, members of the project team and organizing committee, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let me extend congratulations to CARDI on your 47th anniversary. And thank you for their warm welcome and invitation to your webinar on commercializing value-added opportunities from coconut waste in Trinidad and Tobago. Small island developing states like us in Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean need to re-examine our developmental models as we face head-on the impact of climate change. We need to do things differently. And today, you are engaged in such an exercise, examining, looking at opportunities, current and potential, for the utilization of coconut byproducts. The nexus between what you are doing today and one of the current mandates of the EMA is actively implementing Trinidad and Tobago's national environmental policy. Of course, the emphasis will be on priority area, evolving a greener economy, which is one of the 6 priority areas of the NEP. In placing emphasis on this priority area, Trinidad and Tobago, with your assistance, will foster an environmentally responsible society, introduce new value-added economic activities, reduce waste, and generate green jobs. In this regard, we at the EMA applaud this initiative by CARDI to highlight opportunities in the evolution of the downstream development of the coconut industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago National Environmental Policy articulates the priorities determined by we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, critical to achieving environmental sustainability and ultimately sustainable development. This policy was approved by our Parliament in November 2018, and we urge you to read the NEP, which is available on our website, www.ema.co.tt, as we look forward to your contributions to our country's environmental sustainability. Reuse, which is what you're examining today, is one of the pillars of recycling and the movement towards a circular economy, which is aligned, of course, to our national environmental policy and to the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. As you look at opportunities in cocoa peat, biomass energy, activated carbon, geotextiles, and compost and nutrient enrichment, I remember the time not too long ago when coconut byproducts was widely used in mattresses, pillows, and other household items, including floor mats, jewelry, and decorative pieces that sold in many shops and was seen in many households. Most of us still use our coquier brooms, especially at this time of year. Has this stopped? What does this industry and the creative industry need to do differently? I hope you will be identifying what support is necessary for us to move forward. As you re-examine the opportunities for coconut byproducts, I hope you are able to answer these questions and the many other questions that will arise whilst you formulate solutions for our country and the Caribbean to have a greener future. I thank you and look forward to your deliberations. However, I must apologize as I have to leave for an 11 a.m. meeting. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Kevin Thompson, General Manager of SWIMCOM, which in Trinidad is the Solid Waste Management Company Limited, which, amongst other things, manages the landfills and called garbage dumps in Trinidad and Tobago. So I am quite sure right now a lot of the matter we are talking about, will be talking about, actually ends up there in these landfills. And I'm quite sure Mr. Thompson will be quite happy if it went elsewhere. So over to you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you very much and good morning. A warm welcome to all participants. In the essence of time, given that I've about 5 minutes to speak and I want to keep on time, I would like to just say that all protocols are observed. SwimCall would like to congratulate CARDI firstly on its 47th anniversary. And we are very, very pleased to be participating in this webinar, I think, which is appropriate to the time, really looking at these resources. And I want to echo the comments of Chairman Agostini, as well as Mr. Hosein, and recently of Mr. Romano as well, that these resources, as we at SwimCall don't refer to it as waste, as you have opined. We refer to it as misplaced resources. And the fact of the matter is, as brought out by Hayden in his presentation, these were resources being used prior for mattresses, for pillows. We still use them for coquille brooms. And there's an opportunity for us within the broader context of the aftermath of COP26, looking at circular economy themes and sustainability, to really look again at the practices that we have acquired over the last couple decades and really question their sustainability. I think as we look closer, we will see that returning to some of the practices, as Hayden mentioned a short while ago, brings us back into a more circular framework. And certainly the work that CARDI is doing in Barbados in terms of energy, some work we are also doing here in terms of looking at the organic resource as energy and its potential to be used differently. I think these opportunities find a good spot, and I'm really pleased to see so many collaborators working together in this webinar and speaking with one voice with respect to these resources. Just briefly, from the SwimCall perspective, organics make up about 27% of the roughly 700,000 tons of waste that comes to Trinidad and Tobago's main landfills. And this represents about roughly 126,000 tons of organic material every year. Food waste makes up some 20%, with yard and garden waste being the next highest at about 6%, and other organic waste, including wood waste and other organic waste, making up with 2 or 3%. Coconut waste in particular, which is the focus of this webinar, usually enters the landfill sites with general municipal solid waste. As Chairman Agostini mentioned, there is a challenge around having particularly the coconut vendors and others bring that to the landfill, and at times it does end up in the wrong places. At the landfill, however, no, we don't have a separate disposal of coconut resource materials, and we don't generally measure specifically the coconut waste, but our daily averages at the different landfills, both at Forest Park and Runako, we estimate between 40 to 45 cubic yards coming to each of those landfills. And at Beetham, we estimate another 20 or so cubic yards coming in. What are the benefits of diverting this organic material? There's the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. There's a promotion of the circularity concept, which I mentioned previously. There's a reduction in the valuable resource that is entering the landfill. And then there's also the importantly, it saves on critical space for materials which actually require landfilling. To touch briefly a little bit more on the greenhouse gas emissions, organics generate the greenhouse gas methane, which traps about 86 times more heat than carbon dioxide. So it's very detrimental to our environment, and it's very detrimental in terms of this whole global warming issue that we are treating with, not just as a country, but as a planet. But diverting organic material, such as this coconut resource, can reduce these emissions. So work being done in terms of research to find other methods, whether there is peat, or whether it's energy, or whether it's plant material, or to be used in other uses at the home. These have great opportunity, not just to provide a valuable use in our homes and in our country, but also as a knock-on effect to have plays an important part in reducing foreign exchange as we substitute for material that is available locally. In the broader policy context, which Hayden spoke to about somewhat, I just want to expand that the reduction of these greenhouse gas emissions is a strategic objective of our government. It's enshrined in the Vision 2030 document under Theme 5, placing the environment at the center of economic and social development. It's in the National Recycling Policy, Waste Recycling Policy. It's in the Integrated Solid Waste and Resource Management Policy. It's in the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, and it is a part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, diverting organic materials such as green coconut shells aligns the 6 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals: SDG 3, under good health and well-being; SDG 6, clean water and sanitation; SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities; SDG 12, responsible consumption and production; SDG 13, climate action; and SDG 15, life on land. In terms of the circular economy, there is a shift that the greenhouse gases and global warming has brought into our policy space, into thinking more in terms of circularity, not just the linear, former linear-based approach, which is take, make, dispose, but where we go through a process where we take, we use, and then we repurpose. So in terms of waste, in terms of organic, we might grow our food, we might eat our food, and then we may compost the food, returning it back to the land to provide fuel for the next set of food material. It's important for us to as Chairman Agostini just mentioned, we at SwimCall are very interested in a reduction of these valuable resources entering our landfills. They can be transformed into valuable materials such as compost, which can be used as soil additives. It can help the farming community. And as well as CARDI is researching with Barbados, it can be used in order to generate energy, such as biodiesel. For us at SwimCall, this would save critical landfill space. As I mentioned earlier, possible diversion of up to 27% or 126,000 tons of resource material a year is material to SwimCall. It is material to Trinidad and Tobago, for the very simple reason that at SwimCall, these landfills are at capacity. And any help that we can get from the broader industry And we accept that the challenge in this space is not unique to SwimCall and to Trinidad and Tobago, but it is a challenge that other Caribbean countries and in fact other nations would face. And in closing, I would like to say that SwimCall continues to work with its partners. And currently in this particular space, in terms of organic resource management, we are working on establishing a memorandum of understanding with a key stakeholder to further develop the composting industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And so I thank you for your time. And again, congratulations to CARDI. And I wish all the participants a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We really appreciate that because we know the problems you face disposing of this material. I would like to, well, in person, acknowledge the presence of the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, who we passed over, represented by Ms. Albada Beacom, the Director of Research, who will make a presentation in technical session 3. We move on to Mr. Runako Osborne, who's a Community Liaison Officer with the Green Fund, which is part of the, administered, let's say, by the in Trinidad and Tobago by the Ministry of Planning and Development. The Green Fund is actually funded by tax on commercial activity. That's to say, every company, business in Trinidad pays 0.3%, I think, of overall sales into this Green Fund. So there's quite a lot of money there, because we must not forget that everything we're talking about here, going from everything, going from biomass fuel to using coconut shells in activated carbon, coconut peat, everything must be financially viable. So it is good that we'll hear from a representative of the Green Fund, because there are funds available in Trinidad and Tobago here to take off some of these environmental activities. And I'm looking keenly forward to hear what Mr. Osborne has to say about that. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Runako Osborne from the Ministry of Planning and Development. Runako?
Yes, good morning, good morning. I hope everyone is hearing me well. Because since my laptop microphone is not very, let's say, good, I'm using a headset. I'd like to thank Mr. Agostini for introducing me. I'd also like to make or say good morning to Mr. Molinuevo. I would like to say good morning to CARDI and the staff members. I would like to say good morning to Mr. Alvarez, the project coordinator of CARDI. I would like to congratulate CARDI for their 47th anniversary and the work they have done in Trinidad and Tobago to date. And thank you for inviting me to just give a little, let's say, or have a little discussion on the Green Fund. As Mr. Agostini has stated, the Green Fund comes from a tax on all private sector companies doing business in Trinidad and Tobago to the amount of 0.3% of their annual earnings. It was first introduced in 2001 under the Miscellaneous Taxes Act. And the purpose of the fund is to financially assist eligible organizations that wish to engage in environmentally conscious activities that are related to the focal areas of the Green Fund. So you may be wondering, who are these beneficiaries and what are the focal areas of the Green Fund? Well, we have 4 focal areas of the Green Fund. It originally was 3, but 1 was added in the year 2012. in the legislation as well. And the first focal area is remediation, and that is the restoration of any, let's say, any land or any area that has been degraded by natural or anthropogenic interference. Then we have reforestation, which is the replanting of a tree from a previously forested area, which is different from reforestation, because in Trinidad and Tobago, we tend to use the two interchangeably. Then we have conservation of the environment, which is the wise use of our natural resources for future generations. And this is where I see this, let's say, webinar discussion. This is the area, well, this one and the other focal area is the two areas in which, let's say, green funded activities can come out of, because as I talk about cocoa peat, talk about the activating carbon, biomass, to name a few, these activities fall under conservation of the environment. And we've had, let's say, interest from a number of groups over the years that wanted to engage in activities related to composting, related to using, let's say, natural soil nutrifying material, which is, well, like cocoa peat, for example. And then we have environmental education and public awareness on environmental issues. That is the fourth focal area of the Green Fund, which I also think is a activity that can come out of this, because like what CARDI is doing today, sensitization and education on the alternatives of this unused resource, as Mr. Thompson from Swim said, this unused resource, which has a number of applications, as Mr. Romano said, was talking about the use of the cocoa broom, or the use of using, let's say, the husk in broom material. And there was a speaker before, I think Mr. Molinuevo, I think it may have been him, that was talking about using the leaves of the tree to make, let's say, bags and different other things that can have some economic value. Education on the viable alternatives is also a green fundable initiative. So you may say, well, okay, so who can access the Green Fund? Well, we have currently under the legislation a limited number of entities that can access the Green Fund. The first will be an organization incorporated under an act other than the Companies Act. That is why, for example, we've had organizations like the EMA, for example, that would have accessed funding from the Green Fund for a number of projects. The IMA would have accessed the Green Fund because they're under the Institute of Marine Affairs Act, and that's just to name a few. The next will be an organization incorporated under an act, an organization incorporated under Part 5 of the Companies Act as a non-for-profit entity. And that would be, well, basically straightforward, non-profit entities registered with the Ministry of Legal Affairs as such, and or the THA in Tobago. Then we have community groups. Those are organizations from particular localities within Trinidad and Tobago that are engaged in activities related to the focal areas of the Green Fund that are registered ideally or previously with the Ministry of Community Development, but with the new introduction of legislation in 2019, that, let's say, designation may change as it relates to who will be the persons that will be registering community-based organizations. And then we have non-governmental organizations such as the NGOs that are registered with ideally or previously the Ministry of Community Development and or the THA in Tobago. So those are, let's say, the organizations that can access the Green Fund. Now, I know I have 10 minutes, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. So you may be wondering, okay, so the Green Fund has been around since 2001 collecting tax. The unit was established in 2008. How much money is available to eligible organizations? Well, based or in accordance with the Auditor General report of 2020, that is last year, the account now stands at 7.63 billion TT dollars, which is available to the beneficiaries I spoke of previously to access the fund. And as I would have elucidated earlier, the activities of using the unused resources of the coconut, like the cocoa peat, the husk, the leaves. These are activities that can be funded by the Green Fund through an application process, which I would speak on briefly in a moment. And then, as I was stating, another possible activity is educating these organizations or persons or groups that may be able to access the Green Fund, and as well groups that are within the coconut industry on different things that they can use with the husk instead of just, let's say, throwing away this wonderful resource. So just to speak briefly on the process of the Green Fund. So the only way to access the Green Fund to date is through an application form that the community liaison officers, myself and Leslie and Dylan, we often give to groups. Now you can access the application form on the Ministry of Planning's website. However, I would advise you contacting either Leslie or myself. I will put the contact information in the chat after my presentation, because we are the front line of the unit. Our purpose is to assist organizations in the filling out of the application form, right? So basically, instead of you attempting the 41 question application form, we always say, come meet with us, let's have a discussion, because we don't want organizations to go through the process of filling out this application form only to be told that, well, the project cannot access the Green Fund, or the organization is not eligible, as this has happened in the past, where we've had organizations that would have filled out the application form. Some of them would have been really beautiful application forms that would have had, let's say, some form of environmental impact. And we had to inform them, well, based on the current legislation in the Miscellaneous Taxes Act and the Green Fund regulations, which is under the same act, the organization cannot access the Green Fund because it doesn't fall under the eligible organizations, or the project, the activity that the organization wishes to engage in, either fully is not aligned with the focal areas of the Green Fund, or there are some aspects of that project that we may not be able to fund. An example is there's a group that I'm currently working with that they wanted to engage or to go to seminars outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Clause 4 of the Green Fund regulation says that the activities are landlocked to the region of Trinidad and Tobago. So they would have to find alternative funding to attend these seminars, which would have increased the capacity of the organization because of Clause 4 of the Green Fund regulations. So these are just some examples of different areas in which we are there to guide the potential beneficiaries before they fill out the application form. So how it works is we would advise you come to us, you have discussion. We then would plan a session where we can answer the questions of the application form, or we can go through the application form question by question. Because what I normally tell groups to do is to go through the application form, read the National Environmental Policy, not only the 2018 version, but the previous version, the 2007 version, as that is the quintessential document by which all applications must be aligned, and that is stated within the Green Fund regulations. Read those documents, compile your questions, and then let's have a discussion on those questions so that you would be able to know how to fill out the application form. And what I also give groups an opportunity is that I can sit down with the organization and go through question by question what we are looking for. Of course, it is the reason why we don't give, for example, a template is because each activity and each organization is different. Therefore, giving an organization a template and say, yes, follow this template and just let them do what they desire often doesn't have the desired response. So we sort of have a hand-holding relationship that we create with the beneficiary, the organization. So you apply, or we go through that application process, you fill out the application form. We also check the attaching documents to make sure that all the documents are let's say, attached to 3 quotations as falls under the procurement regulations of Trinidad and Tobago and the public sector procurement processes. We check to see if you have all the attaching documents, the registration of the organization, the let's say, constitution, and so forth. And once all the T's are crossed and all the I's dotted, we forward it to the GFAC. Because the Green Fund regulation, the Green Fund executing unit, we do not, let's say, approve projects. Our purpose is to receive projects, advise the organizations on the eligibility of these projects and the organization. And once the application is complete and is satisfactory, and let's say is in the best alignment to get funding, we then forward it to the GFAC. That's the Green Fund Advisory Committee. They have been installed to ensure the fairness and transparency of all applications that come to the Green Fund. They are the ones that, let's say, advise the minister on the approval or denial of any application that comes to the Green Fund that has gone through the rigors of the unit and has now been polished to be presented to them. They come from different walks, environment, law, commerce, business, just to name a few. And they would, let's say, gauge the application based on the eligibility criteria that is theirs and theirs alone. We don't have access to that. And then they would advise the minister. Now, in the case of, let's say, denials, the organization has an opportunity to appeal. They will get in writing the reasons for why it was denied. And then we would then work with them to, let's say, address those concerns. And then they can, again, reapply. Now, as it relates to approvals, then the minister to date hasn't gone against the advice of the advisory committee. So the minister will approve the project and the group will get the organization based on a disbursement schedule that the organization would agree to, and it is aligned to the MOA that the organization will sign and also the activities that the organization has indicated in the application form that they are undertaking. So this is just a little snapshot in terms of the processes. Now, I don't know if we have a question and answer part. Of course, I will stick around for that part of it. But again, I'd like to thank CARDI for inviting the Green Fund to shed some light in terms of some potential opportunities that the persons who have come today that may be able to engage or interface with us to access the Green Fund. And I'd like to thank, or also again, congratulate CARDI for their 47 years of wonderful work as it relates to their activities that they do within Trinidad and Tobago and within the region.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Osborne. Participants to know that any questions to Mr. Osborne can be directed through CARDI initially. If they wish, could put them in touch. Because we now have probably over 100 participants online. So I'm quite sure some of them would be very interested in the funding from the Green Fund. And as you say, for Trinidad and Tobago, so expect some applications. Moving on now to the last introductory remarks. And after that, we'll move on to the technical sessions, technical session 1, which I'm sure that many of our participants are waiting for cleanly. So I'd like now to move on to some remarks by Mr. Juan Luis Molinuevo, who's a program manager from the delegation of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago. The European Union is in fact the funder of all of this, you can say. This webinar is under the purview of the Alliance for Coconut Industry Development, Expansion, and Enhanced Support of the Caribbean. I had to read it out. It's a long description, but it's a program. And as I repeat and emphasize, the whole thing is funded by the European Union. So we thank them for that. So as I say, I'd like to introduce Juan Luis Molinuevo. And this, as I said, will be the last introduction. And after this, we'll be moving on to the technical sessions. Mr. Molinuevo, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. All protocols observed, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, good morning. I bring to you heartfelt greetings by Ambassador Peter Cavendish, who is currently on leave, and asked me to deliver these remarks to you. The European Union understands the critical importance of the revitalization of the coconut industry in the region. It is difficult to think of the Caribbean without visualizing coconut trees. We also agree that the success in the revitalization of this industry cannot happen without the collaboration both on a national and regional level. I'm pleased to be here today as part of the partnership of the European Union to key regional industry. Agriculture is one of the traditional pillars of support of the EU with partner countries. This is because we realize that food production and food security are important facets of the economic development and stability of every region. In the Caribbean, this support becomes more critical since we recognize that the majority of the food consumed here is imported, and we would like you to assist you to change that. This program, with that long name, tackles also how to make it greener. The Green Deal will be a top priority of the European Union inside and outside our borders. The European Union adopted a set of proposals for reducing net greenhouse emissions, but at least 55% by 2030, compared to 1990 levels, making Europe the first climate neutral continent in the world is our goal. These proposals aim to make all sectors of the EU economy fit to meet this challenge. They set the EU on a path to reach its climate target by 2030 in a fair, cost-effective and competitive way. In order to clean our energy system, the EU proposed to increase the binding target of renewable sources in the EU energy mix by 40%. The proposals promote the uptake of renewable fuels, such as some key ones as biomass, that we are going to speak more today. Additionally, restoring nature and enabling biodiversity to thrive again offers a quick and cheap solution to absorb and store carbon. We propose, therefore, to restore forests, soils, and wetlands. The green transitions present a major opportunity for the industry by creating markets for clean technologies and products. We believe in innovation, as innovation brings prosperity. Innovation can speed up and improve the way we conceive, develop, produce, and access new products, processes, and services. These are changes that can create more jobs, improve people's lives, and build a greener and better societies. Boosting research and innovation will support sustainable growth and create well-paid jobs that will withstand the pressure of globalization. In that regard, let me give you a brief overview of one of the current EU support programs to the sector in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2015, it was determined that the focal sector for cooperation between EU and Trinidad and Tobago will be innovation. And therefore, a program was launched and became our flagship program for partnership with Trinidad and Tobago. This program has three different elements, but I'm going to speak today about the Innovation Challenge Fund, which forms the backbone of the program. It will make $52 million available in grants to priority SMEs to engage in innovative activities to assist the country to build back better. And I'm bringing this today because currently the application to this fund is open. The deadline for concept note is the 14th of January, and actually there is 5 sectors that will receive priority, and agribusiness is one of them for this call. So I'm going to leave after the links in the chat, and tomorrow and the day after there will be some informative session. I will leave also the information on the chat. This program will support the recovery and is essential for the future. We know that with COVID, SMEs, which are the backbone of the economy, generating precious job and opportunity, have been heavily impacted by this pandemic. So this program is coming into stream in such a critical time. So now, in order to conclude, I would also like to congratulate CARDI on their 47th anniversary and the great work done all over these years. We are pleased that this program, due to this success, it is now in its second phase. And within the current activities, we can present today commercializing value-added opportunities for coconut waste in Trinidad and Tobago webinar. Thank you very much.